software wala, and I'm a one student at Rehan School Islamabad campus. So today I'm here with a new co-pilot. So our today's co-pilot topic is on um, sustainability, climate change. Sorry, so our today's topic is climate change and sustainability. So let's start. First of all, call the co-pilot for some questions. Okay, co-pilot. My first question from you is what is the climate change in simple terms? So please give me very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your interesting answers. Let's start.
All right, let's dive in. So think of climate change as our planet slowly cranking up the thermostat without really asking us. It's mainly because we're pumping out greenhouse gases like CO2 from things we do every day, driving cars, burning fuel, and all that jazz. And as we do that, the planet gets warmer, weather patterns get a bit funky, and it's like Earth is throwing little climate curveballs at us. What else are you curious about?
Okay, so co-pilot, it's not clearly answered. It's not a very good answer. Please give me long answer. So what are the main causes of climate change? So please give me a very interesting and long answer. Clearly answers. Let's start.
Absolutely. Let's unpack it a bit more. So, the big players in the climate change game are basically greenhouse gases. Think carbon dioxide from burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas, and methane from agriculture. Cows burping, for example, surprisingly is a big one, and landfills. And deforestation is like adding fuel to the fire because trees are basically the Earth's lungs. And when we cut them down, we lose their ability to soak up that CO2. So all of this is just trapping heat in our atmosphere like a big toasty blanket. And that's the long and short of it. Now, what's on your mind next?
Okay, so my next question from you is, co-pilot, how is global warming affect the planet and what are visible effects of climate change today? So please give me very interesting answer on this topic like ccmaya.com. So please give me a long answer.
You got it. So the way global warming is playing out is a bit like Earth clipping through a really unpredictable weather channel. We're seeing more intense heat waves, wildfires getting wilder, hurricanes cranking up their intensity, and floods that seem a bit too eager to crash the party. It's like the planet's weather is on a bit of a roller coaster ride. Glaciers are melting, sea levels are creeping up, and even our oceans are getting a bit grumpier, warming up and becoming more acidic, which is marine life for a loop. So, yeah, that's the kind of drama we're dealing with. Now, what else should we chat about?
Okay, so co-pilot, my next question from you is how does climate change impact oceans and sea levels? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic and fully long answer. So I'm waiting for your long and interesting answers. Let's start.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in. So, imagine the oceans like this massive, steady heartbeat of the planet, right? Now, climate change is turning that heartbeat into more of a drum roll. As the planet warms up, the oceans absorb a bunch of that extra heat because they're kind of like Earth's giant sponge. That makes the water expand. And when you add melting glaciers and ice sheets into the mix, sea levels start rising. It's a bit like filling up a bathtub ever so slowly. On top of that, warmer oceans mean more intense storms and hurricanes because they feed off that warm water like fuel. And as if that's not enough, the oceans are also becoming more acidic because they're soaking up CO2, which is kind of like giving marine life a tough time. Coral reefs, for example, are feeling the heat literally. So yeah, a whole cascade of effects, and we're seeing the ripple effects everywhere. So what else is on your mind?
Okay, so co-pilot, my next question from you is, how does no, how does why are the glaciers melting so fast? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long and interesting answer. So let's start your answer.
Thanks for that. I'm glad it hit the mark for you. There's just so much to chat about when it comes to our oceans. They're basically the unsung heroes of the planet in a lot of ways. So, hey, what else are you itching to know more about? Got it. You're in the mood for the deep dive. So let's really explore this. When we talk about climate change and the oceans, it's like unfolding a huge story. Picture the oceans as this enormous climate regulator. They absorb more than 90% of the excess heat trapped by greenhouse gases. Because of that, sea levels are rising. Think of it as a mix of warmer water expanding and ice sheets melting down. This creeping sea level rise is already making life tricky for coastal communities and ecosystems. Add more acidic waters into the mix, oceans absorbing CO2, and it's tough times for coral reefs and marine species. Is a whole chain reaction. Warmer waters, rising seas, and struggling marine life all woven into this story of a changing climate. So let's keep this going. What else are you curious about?
Okay, so co-pilot, my next question from you is what does sustainability mean? So please give me a very interesting and fully long answer.
Absolutely. So the way climate change impacts the oceans is really like peeling back layers of a very intricate story. Oceans aren't just these big blue expanses. They're like the Earth's giant climate control system. When we pump greenhouse gases into the air, the oceans absorb a lot of that extra heat, over 90%, in fact. That makes seawater expand. And then you have all the ice melting from Greenland and Antarctica sliding into the sea, which gives us rising sea levels. On top of that, the oceans soak up a bunch of CO2, becoming more acidic, and that's like a double whammy for marine life. Coral reefs get stressed, marine ecosystems feel the pressure, and coastal communities face more flooding and erosion. So there you have it. Our oceans are basically doing a ton of heavy lifting in the whole climate drama. Now, what else did you like to dive into?
Okay, so co-pilot, my next one from you is why is sustainability important for the future and how do industries contribute climate change? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long answer. So let's start. So let's start your answer.
Absolutely, let's get into it. So, when we talk about climate change in the oceans, we're essentially looking at the planet's big blue lungs and thermostat rolled into warm. The oceans absorb a huge chunk of the excess heat from greenhouse gas emissions, over 90% in fact. And as they warm up, seawater expands, glaciers and ice sheets melt, and voila, sea levels start to rise bit by bit. It's like a slow motion bathtub filling up. On top of that, the oceans are soaking up CO2, which makes them more acidic. And that's kind of a tough gig for marine life, especially coral reefs. So it's all connected, and the oceans are right at the heart of the climate story. Now, what else would you like to dive into?
Okay, so co-pilot, my next question from you is how does transportation affect the environment? So please give me a very interesting answer and fully long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long and interesting answer and almost 3 minute 2 minutes answer because I want to learn English and really English. So let's start.
Absolutely. Let's dive into it. So, when we talk about transportation and its impact on the environment, we're really looking at a massive player in the climate change game. Transportation, everything from cars, trucks, planes, ships, is a huge source of greenhouse gas emissions, especially carbon dioxide. When we burn fossil fuels to power our vehicles, we're releasing CO2 into the atmosphere, and that builds up like a thick blanket, trapping heat. In cities, that also means air pollution, tiny particles that can harm our lungs and health. And let's not forget noise pollution and the land we use to build roads and highways. It all adds up to a pretty big environmental footprint. But hey, there's a silver lining. More and more, we're seeing electric vehicles, better public transit, and innovations that could help cut down that footprint. So that's the big picture. Now, what's on your mind next?
Okay, so my next question from you is co-pilot, how can renewable energy help fight climate change? So how does transportation affect the environment? So please give me a very interesting answer and fully long answer on this topic.
Absolutely. Let's really get into it. So, transportation is like this huge piece of the environmental puzzle. Basically, whenever we hop in our cars, board a plane, or even jump on a ship, we're usually burning fossil fuels to get from A to B. That process releases a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and CO2 is like the main character in the greenhouse gas story. It traps heat and drives global warming. But there's more to it than just CO2. Transportation also contributes to air pollution. There's tiny particles and nitrogen oxides that come out of exhaust pipes, can mess with our air quality and our health. Plus, all that infrastructure, roads, highways, airports, takes up land and can disrupt natural habitats. On the right side, though, we're seeing more electric vehicles, better public transit options, and cool innovations to help reduce that environmental footprint over time. So that's the long and the short of it. What I was going to help with.
Okay, so co-pilot, my next question from you is how can renewable energy help fight climate? So please give me a very interesting and very long answer.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. So renewable energy is like the unsung hero in the fight against climate change. Instead of relying on fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas, which pump a whole bunch of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, renewables like wind, solar and hydro generate power without those emissions. It's kind of like swapping out a smoky old furnace for a clean, fresh breeze. But it's not just about cutting emissions. Renewable energy also reduces air pollution, which is a win for everyone's health, economies, and give us a more stable energy supply. So it's a whole of benefits. And the really exciting part is that technology is getting better and cheaper all the time. Easier for the world to shift toward a more sustainable future. So that's the big picture on how renewables can really step up in the climate fight. What else can I help with?
Okay, so my next question from you is co-pilot. What is the future of the solar and wind energy? So please give me a very interesting and fully long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your fully long answers. Let's start.
Absolutely. Let's dive right into the future of solar and wind energy because it's a really exciting frontier. So solar and wind are pretty much at the forefront of the renewable revolution. Over the past decade or so, these technologies have gone dramatically cheaper and way more efficient. That trend is only going to continue, which means solar panels are going to become more common on rooftops and wind turbines will be a more familiar sight, both onshore and offshore. We're also talking about smarter grids and better energy storage like advanced batteries. That will make it easier to rely on these renewable resources even when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. It's kind of like building a more flexible, future-proof energy system. So the future of solar and wind is really bright, no pun intended, and they're going to play a massive role in helping us cut down carbon emissions, create greener jobs, and move toward a more sustainable world. And as we keep innovating, who knows what other breakthroughs we'll take. So that's the full scoop on where solar and wind energy are headed. Anything else on your mind?
So my next question from you is co-pilot. How can individuals reduce their carbon footprint? And please give me a very interesting and fully long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your fully long answers. Let's start and very interesting answer.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that. So when we talk about reducing our carbon footprint, it's really about those everyday choices that add up over time. For one, thinking about how we move around can make a big difference. So maybe walking, biking, or using public transport instead of driving solo whenever you can. Even carpooling or switching to an electric vehicle if that's an option. Then there's what we eat. Eating more plant-based meals can lower your carbon footprint because producing meat, especially beef, creates a lot of emissions. Also thinking about your energy use at home, like switching to LED bulbs, improving your insulation, or maybe even installing solar panels if that's doable. And let's not forget about reducing waste. Recycling, composting, and buying less stuff all help shrink that footprint. So it's really a mix of transportation, energy, food choices, and waste reduction. All those little steps add up, and they're a great way for individuals to make a real difference. What else can I answer for you?
Okay, so my next question from you is co-pilot. What are the eco-friendly habits for daily life and how does consumer behavior affect the environment? Sorry, what are the eco-friendly habits for daily life? So please give me a very interesting answer and fully long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your interesting and fully long answer. So let's start.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. So, eco-friendly habits for daily life are really just these little adjustments that can add up to a big difference over time. For starters, think about conserving energy, off lights when you leave a room, unplugging devices that you're not using, and maybe even using a programmable thermostat to save energy when you're out. Then there's water conservation, simple things like taking shorter showers, fixing leaks, and using water efficient appliances can save a lot of water. Also being mindful about what you buy. Eating reusable over disposable, bringing your own shopping bags, and cutting down on single-use plastics can make a big difference. And of course, thinking about how you get around, walking, biking, carpooling, public transport when possible. Even small habits like recycling properly or composting food scraps can help reduce waste. It's really about those everyday choices that add up to living a little lighter on the planet. So that's the scoop on daily eco-friendly habits. What else can I help you with?
Okay, so my next question from you is Copilot. Uh, how does consumer behavior affect the environment? So please give me very interesting and fully. I'm waiting for your long answers. So let's start.
You got it. Let's keep this conversation rolling. So, when we dive into the idea of eco friendly daily habits, it's really about integrating small, sustainable choices into our everyday lives in a way that feels natural and doable. For example, you can start with something as simple as bringing your own reusable coffee cup or water bottle. It's a tiny change, but if everyone does it, it can cut down on a lot of single use waste. Or you might look into reducing food waste by planning your meals, storing leftovers properly, and composting where you can. Even choosing to support local and sustainable brands can make a difference, as it encourages more eco-friendly practices in the marketplace. Over time, these habits become second nature and they add up to a lifestyle that's kinder to the planet. It's all about those little ripples that create a bigger wave of change. So there you have it, just some ideas on building a more eco-friendly daily routine. Well, you can make them all together.
Okay, so my next question from you is Maya. Copilot, why is waste management important? So please give me very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long answer on this topic. So let's start.
Absolutely. Let's dive into waste management. It's one of those topics that's super crucial to a sustainable future. When we talk about why it matters, it really comes down to the fact that everything we throw away has to go somewhere. If we don't manage it properly, it can pile up in landfills, create pollution, and even end up in our oceans. That can harm wildlife, affect ecosystems, and contribute to climate change when waste breaks down and releases greenhouse gases. Well, when we manage waste well, through reducing what we use, reusing items, recycling materials, and composting organic waste, we can cut down on those negative impacts. It also helps conserve natural resources because when we recycle, we're essentially giving materials a second life instead of extracting new raw materials. And on top of that, good waste management can create jobs and stimulate economic activity in recycling industries. So it's about protecting the environment, conserving and building a more sustainable future. That's the big picture on why waste management really matters. Anything else on your mind?
Okay, so my next question from you is Copilot. Uh, why is waste management? What is the role of recycling in sustainability? So please give me very interesting and fully long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long and interesting answers. Let's start.
Absolutely. Let's dive right into the role of recycling and sustainability. Recycling is one of those cornerstone practices that really ties into building a more sustainable world. Essentially, it's all about taking materials that have already been used, like paper, glass, metal, and plastic, and processing them so they can be turned into new products instead of ending up in a landfill. The beauty of recycling is that it conserves natural resources. When we reuse materials, we reduce the need to extract raw resources from the earth, which means less mining, less deforestation, and less corruption of natural habitats. It also saves energy because making products from recycled materials typically uses less energy than starting from scratch. For example, recycling aluminium saves up to 95 the energy required to make the same amount of aluminium from raw materials. Beyond that, recycling helps reduce the amount of waste that ends up in landfills and incinerators, which means less pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. It's also a key piece of the circular economy, where products and materials are kept in use for as long as possible, rather than being used once and then tossed out. So, in a nutshell, recycling helps close the loop and build a more sustainable way of living. What else can I help you with?
Okay, so co-pilot, my next question from you is how does deforestation impact climate change? So please give me very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long and interesting answer. So let's start.
Absolutely. Let's dive into deforestation and its impact on climate change. So forests are basically like the lungs of our planet. They absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it, which helps to regulate the Earth's climate. When we cut down trees on a large scale, whether for agriculture, logging, or development, we lose that carbon storage. Even work when trees are burned or left to decompose, they release the carbon they stored back into the atmosphere as CO2, which is a major greenhouse gas. This whole process contributes to climate change because it increases the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which in turn traps heat and warms the planet. Deforestation can also disrupt weather patterns and reduce biodiversity, which is vital for healthy ecosystems. So protecting forests isn't just about saving trees for their own sake, it's about maintaining a balanced climate and a healthy planet. And that's the big picture on how deforestation impacts climate change. What else can we explore?
Okay, so co-pilot, my next question from you is why are forests important for environment? So please give me very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long and interesting answers. So let's start.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in. Into the role the deforestation plays in climate change is actually pretty huge, and it's one of those major environmental challenges that we really need to tackle. When forests are cut down, we're not just losing trees, we're losing one of our planet's most important tools for keeping the climate in balance. Forests act like giant carbon sinks. They pull carbon dioxide out of the air and store it in their wood, leaves, and soil. So when we remove those trees, we release upstored carbon back into the atmosphere, and that adds more greenhouse gases to the mix. And it's not just about carbon either. Forests influence local and global weather patterns, they support biodiversity, and they provide livelihoods for millions of people. So deforestation really ripples out in a lot of ways. By protecting forests and practicing sustainable land use, we can help keep our climate stable and preserve these essential ecosystems for future generations. So that's the scoop on how deforestation fits into the climate puzzle. Anything else you'd like to chat about?
My next question from you is co-pilot, how does climate change affect water resources? So please give me very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your interesting and long answers. Let's start.
Absolutely, let's get into it. Climate change has a whole host of impacts on water resources. For starters, as global temperatures rise, we see changes in precipitation patterns. Some areas may get more intense rainfall, while others face longer and more severe droughts. This means that water availability can become more unpredictable, making it harder to manage water supplies for drinking, agriculture, and industry. We're also seeing the impact on glaciers and snowpacks, which act as natural water storage systems in many parts of the world. As they melt faster due to warming, there can be more flooding in the short term and less reliable water flowing in the long term. Rising sea levels and saltwater intrusion can also affect freshwater supplies in coastal areas, making it harder for communities to access clean drinking water. In short, climate change is reshaping the water cycle in complex ways, and that means we need to be more thoughtful about how we manage and conserve water resources. It's definitely a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to innovate and build more resilient water systems for the future. What else are you curious about?
So co-pilot, my next question from you is what is sustainable agriculture? So please give me an interesting answer and full long answers. Let's start.
Absolutely, let's dig into it. Sustainable agriculture is a fantastic topic because it's a key piece of creating a more resilient and future-proof food system. Farming in a way that meets our current food needs without compromising the ability for future generations to meet theirs. One big piece of the puzzle is soil health. Sustainable farming practices like crop rotation, reduced tillage, and cover cropping help maintain fertile soil and prevent erosion. Healthy soil not only supports but also stores carbon. which helps mitigate climate change. And management, sustainable agriculture focuses on using water more efficiently, whether that's through drip irrigation, rainwater harvesting, or choosing crops that are better suited to the local climate. It's also about reducing dependency on chemical fertilizers and pesticides, which can harm the environment and human health. Ultimately, sustainable agriculture is about working with nature rather than against it. It's about creating farming systems that are resilient, diverse, and capable of feeding the world without depleting our planet's resources. And Gable, what else can we dive into?
तरीका देखना वह मुझे दूर ही चला गया यार हम तेरे तो बात कर रहे नहीं वो मैंने पूरा तो गया
Okay, so viewer, this was our co-pilot. I hope you like it. I meet with a new co-pilot next day, next topic. Thank you and Allah.